Women, and Chief, please pass on words from council for that. Thank you very much. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam Actonel. Be resolved that the October 17th council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 7:11 p.m. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. I'll ask everyone to stand for the playing of our national anthem. Alrighty, thank you. Moving on to item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Luck.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to disclose on item 8B for Place Saint Laurent as I work with EVB Engineering.
Thank you very much. So noted. Moving on to 4, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have a slight amendment to the agenda this evening. We are going to be moving item 8C, the appointment of the treasurer, earlier up in the meeting. So we're going to be placing that item just before item 6A, being the auditor presentation.
Alrighty. Moved by Sam Actonel, second by Rebecca Luck. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, approval of the minutes of the October 3rd meeting. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the October 3rd council minutes be adopted as circulated. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Alrighty. So we're moving on quickly here. So this is where we've moved up the bylaw. Before we get into that, we are pleased that Sade Jane has been hired as the new treasurer and GM of finance. Sade has many years of relevant finance experience and degrees in finance, mathematics, and quantitative economics, along with AMCTO courses in finance and accounting. Most recently, Sade was the Financial Services Team Lead for Budget and Special Projects with the City of Cornwall. He has also been the City of Cornwall's Accounting and Risk Management Coordinator and a Financial Analyst with the Glensordan Lodge. Welcome, Sade. Alrighty. So we'll go on to item 8C. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I think you did a great introduction for our new treasurer, Mr. Jane. So the bylaw that's before you this evening is simply to officially appoint him as our new treasurer, as well as to assign the signing authority.
Alrighty, now I just have to find the the bylaw in my resolutions here. If you'll bear with me. All right, here. All right, moved by Sam Actonel, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it no. Oh yes, it is. My apologies. Be it resolved that staff report 170 2022 be received, and that bylaw 72-2022, being a bylaw to appoint Sade Jane as treasurer for the Township of South Glengarry, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 17th day of October 2022. And furthermore, that the council of the Township of South Glengarry authorizes all checks of the corporation drawn on its accounts may be signed by Mayor Lyle Warden, CAO Tim Mills, Treasurer Sade Jane, and Deputy Treasurer Kaylin McDonald, and that they also be authorized to sign all other documents required in this manner. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Perfect. Thank you very much. And we're heading on to Auditor Presentation, and I'll hand the floor over to CAO Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. Nothing like getting right at it, Mr. Jane. So I'd like to invite General Manager Jane and Mr. Murphy from MNP to present to us. Before they present, I want to acknowledge the work that's been done over the last number of months by the Finance Department. And I want to thank all the staff and particularly Kaylin McDonald for all of her work the past month, leading the team and helping Sade get right at it today with a short presentation he's going to give to you, and then he'll turn it over to Mr. Murphy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
Thank you, Tim. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So today, I'm very pleased to present this council the 2021 financial statements. Today, I'll go over a very brief presentation to highlight the 2021 financial performance for the township, and then I'll hand it off to Mr. Ian Murphy to go into much more depth about the financial statements themselves. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mr. Murphy and his team over at MNP for all their hard work in the preparation of these financial statements. And I'd also like to thank Ms. Kaylin McDonald for her help throughout today and in the preparation of this presentation. So if we could go to slide 1, please.
You have the mouse.
Okay. So this slide here shows the operating surplus for the township. The operating surplus for the 2021 fiscal year was $716,225. Out of that surplus, there was $29,820 that was transferred to the streetlights reserve. $480,081 was transferred to the water and wastewater reserves, and $206,324 was transferred to the general reserve at year end. This slide here shows the statement of financial position. So starting off at the top, the township ended the 2021 fiscal year with a total of $17,835,331 in financial assets. These financial assets represent the cash and cash equivalents that the township has, including the reserves, and represents the accounts receivable for the township. The township ended the year with a total liabilities of $6,051,735. This amount is largely comprised of our accounts payable as well as the landfill closure and post-closure costs. The subtraction of the two results in net financial assets for the township of $11,783,596. In addition to that, the township also has non-financial assets that ended the year with a total of $51,946,598. The non-financial assets are the township's capital assets. That includes buildings, all of our recreation facilities, the vehicles, roads, inventory of supplies, and a small amount in prepaid expenses, specifically for prepaid insurance. The summation of the net financial assets and the non-financial assets results in an accumulated surplus for the township for a total of $63,730,194. And the accumulated surplus can be looked at as sort of a net worth of the township. That accumulated surplus number represents an increase of $1,342,942 over the fiscal year 2020. Moving on, this slide here shows the revenues that the township raised in 2021. As you can see here, starting off with taxation, the taxation levy in 2021 for the township was $9,533,016, which represents a net decrease of about $410,000. So in 2021, council approved a taxation levy decrease of approximately that much. The fees and services in 2021 were $3,282,694, which represents about a $540,000 increase over 2020. That increase was attributed to the growth in water and wastewater service connections, largely in the Glen Walter area. And there was no increase, however, to the water and wastewater rates in 2021. Grants amounted to about $1.3 million, specifically $1,295,294, and that is largely stable over 2020. And then finally, we have other revenue there as well of $539,001. The other revenue was made up of approximately $425,000 that was earned as penalties on tax arrears. Additionally, the township also earned about $110,000 in interest income for 2021. Overall, the township raised $14,650,005 as revenue in 2021, which represents a net increase of about $125,000 over 2020. This slide here shows the expenses for the township. As you can see there, the total expenses for 2021 was $14,516,989, which represents about a $1.16 million increase over 2020. The increased expenditures were due to increases in transportation services for capital expenditures, protection services for personnel and IT hardware and software costs, and environmental services for equipment purchases. There was also a reduction of expenditures in recreation and cultural services due to decreased staffing levels and less costs for property maintenance and building repairs. Moving on to the reserves. So in 2021, the township ended the fiscal year with a total reserve balance of $13,280,345, which represents approximately a $230,000 increase over 2020. In 2022, council has already approved transfers into the township's reserves of approximately $1.5 million. Additionally, council has also approved transfers out of the reserves of approximately $4.1 million. A more detailed report on the reserves will be presented to council prior to the end of this calendar year. That report will also outline the performance of our operating funds and our capital funds and outline any variances to budget that may be present, with commentary from respective department managers. Moving on to the township's tangible capital asset inventory. You can see there that the original cost of the total tangible capital assets for the township was $115,385,568. The accumulated amortization at the end of 2021 amounted to $63,635,816, which represents a net book value at the end of 2021 of $51,749,752. That represents a 45% of the original cost to acquire those assets. And that 45% number that you see there can be looked at as a very, very high level estimation of how much service life is left in the township's total asset inventory. And then lastly, I do want to go over some of the 2023 planned initiatives. So first and foremost, the Financial Services Department will be undergoing a long-term financial plan in 2023. This long-term financial plan will set reserve policies for all of the township's reserves, set reserve target balances, and determine the methodology to achieve those target balances. Additionally, the financial services team will be completing a review of the township's tax arrears to formulate a formal tax arrears policy. The township ended the fiscal year 2021 with tax arrears that amounted to approximately 34% of own source revenues, which represents a approximately 10% decrease over the fiscal year 2020. The township aims to get that number to about 25%. And a formal tax arrears policy will be presented to council in the first half of the next calendar year. And then lastly, financial services team, along with other departments, will be conducting a review of the user fees to formulate a comprehensive fees bylaw in 2023. So that will include a review of water and wastewater rates, recreation fees, planning fees, et cetera. And now I'd like to hand it over to Ian to go much more in depth on the financial statements. And as I said at the top, I do want to thank your team for all your hard work in preparing the statements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll start. There's a couple audit reporting matters that we usually communicate to you. So just quickly, during our audit, we didn't come across any instances of fraud or non-compliance with any laws or regulations, although our audit cannot be relied upon to find all instances of those issues. Nothing came to our attention that there was any concerns that needed to be taken care of. So on the financial statements, there's the first page is the management's responsibility for the financial statements. So management is responsible for the preparation of these financial statements, and our responsibility as auditors is to provide an opinion on these financial statements based on the accounting standards. So you'll notice the independent auditor's report, which follows that management's responsibility statement, outlines our opinion. So in the first two paragraphs, it has our opinion. So it says, we've audited the financial statements of the Township of South Glengarry, which comprise a statement of financial position, statements of financial activities, changes in net financial assets and cash flows, and related schedules and notes, including the significant accounting policies. And in our opinion, these financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2021, the results of its operations, changes in net financial assets, and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So a long-winded version of saying that we're issuing a clean audit opinion on the financials. So if you look at which is page 1 of the financial statement, so it comes after these two reports. It's a statement of financial position. So you just had a brief highlight on the totals of what make up the net financial assets and non-financial assets. This gives you a little bit of more detail on what makes up those numbers. So you'll notice your cash position at $13,766,000 on December 31st. Your taxes receivable is decreased from $4.3 million to $3.2 million, and your general accounts receivable remained similar at about $800,000. The accumulated surplus, so that's $63,730,000 at the bottom of the page. That represents the accumulated surplus from public sector accounting standards, so not the actual surplus that you budget for on an annual basis. So if you turn to page 7 of the financial statements, this is Schedule 3, which breaks down that accumulated surplus. And that's broken down into 3 main categories: your operating surpluses or deficits, your reserves, and your equity in your tangible capital assets. So at the top, you have your what's labeled as deficits, showing that there's a streetlight surplus of 158,000 and an unfunded liability for the landfill closure and post-closure costs of 1,458,000, which is an accounting treatment that we show what the future costs of closing and maintaining those landfill sites will cost over the next number of years. Then you have your reserves that have been set aside for specific purposes for council, and they total the 13,280,000, or roughly about 91% of your annual operating expenditure line. So you've got a significant amount of reserves that have been set aside, but as you had just heard, you're also drawing out a significant amount of that, so that kind of gives you back into that higher range of the reserves, but a better comfort level of how much is set aside for there. And then the last number that makes up the majority of that number is the 51 million that's held in the equity and tangible capital assets. So if we switch back to page 2, this is a statement of financial activities. So it gives you a little bit of detail on the revenue and expenses that were brought in and spent by the township. It's got 3 columns, which is the budget on the first column, the actual 2021 numbers in the middle, and the comparisons for 2020. And you'll notice the 14,650,000 that the township brought in revenues, 14.5 million in expenditures, and there's some other revenue related to capital of just over 1.2 million. So that leaves a PSAB surplus of 1,342,000. Then we'll skip again to page 17, which gives note number 10, which is labeled operating surplus, which helps you reconcile the surplus of the 1.3 million that we show on the financial statements to the surpluses that it was just mentioned at the beginning of this presentation of the $716,000. So that takes into account reserve transfers, capital asset purchases, and non-cash items such as the landfill closure costs and amortization expenses as well. So it gives you the total operating $716,000. 206 of that is your general surplus, and 480,000 of the water and sewer surplus. So I won't go into detail on the remaining items of the financial statements, but if you do have questions, I'll be happy to ask or answer. I'll basically close it off with the township's in good, solid financial position. There is no direct municipal debt. The debt that is there is the landfill, land improvement charges from the area residents. So it flows through the township, but it's not direct township debt. There's cash in reserves. You've got healthy reserve balance as well, so there's no issues from our perspective on that. And the receivable balances have been decreasing over the last about a year and a half, so that's getting closer in line with where your target should be, which would be under that 25%, but it's getting there over the last little while.
All right. Thank you very much for your detailed report, gentlemen. Are there any questions or comments of council? Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. I don't think this affects any of the numbers, but I think just to make sure that it's consistent, like for note 5, for the accrued landfill closure and post-closure costs, the comment around the life of the landfill is more and more out of date. So I think what's being put there is just sort of what it was when it was originally set, and it's not reflective of reality. So I think it probably should be updated.
Yeah, those are based on when the last formal closure costs and all the study and associated costs to close that were done. So that's based on, even though the length has been always updated, the actual study and the detailed costing of it hasn't. So the methodology on how we come up with that liability hasn't changed. But it will be done shortly, and it's going to be done in time for the new accounting standard for retirement obligations that will change the way that all of this is accounted for as well.
Okay, so we could expect it to be updated
Well,
next time?
not necessarily next time, because due to COVID, they have actually extended that, the implementation of that new standard. So it will be effective for the 2023 financial statements, with comparisons for 2022. So that'll be kind of worked on in conjunction at the same time.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the landfill, the service life of the landfill does get measured through Ms. McDonald's department every 2 years. So we do have a good handle on how much service life is left at each one of our landfills. The liability, however, is a separate issue. And as Mr. Murphy was saying, we do need to conduct a more in-depth analysis of what that liability's current measurement is. And that is something that we have been planning, and we will look to be putting aside some budget dollars in the next budget year to complete that study.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll let you off easy on your first day. Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. And we're moving on to staff report 164-2022, the peanut line reserve, CAO Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. This is looping back to a staff report that was done last meeting. On October 3rd, council received a staff report to reward the tender for the Peanut Line Bridge for $385,000. As the project had been budgeted in November 2021 for $130,000, you see the request there for council, which you did approve, the transfer of $223,000 from the reserve, the Peanut Line Reserve, with an additional $100,000 from general reserve to cover the additional costs, and costs just keep going up. We're coming back to you tonight that we noted in reviewing the reserve transfer amount following the meeting, a misstatement of the reserve balance came to light. The amount initially budgeted for the bridge in 2021 was intended to be fully offset by the Peanut Line Reserve, but had not been transferred in the transfer process of reserves for this year. So the available reserve balance was not as stated to council on October 3rd. In effect, the $130,000 was double counted by mistake. So we're requesting that council increase the amount to be transferred from general reserves to $230,000. Staff can also look at the we're going to be traveling the line shortly. There is planned maintenance, but it can also potentially be delayed and not be as expensive. And $25,000 allocated from the granular replacement can be reallocated to this project, with $205,000 being taken from general reserves. So the impact on the 22 budget, the increased transfer from general reserves will affect the amount of general reserves held by the township. Just a final statement that's not on the report. Council will remember that there are increased costs projected for the peanut line, but from Ms. McDonald's report from last council meeting, that we have a lot of potential costs in the future for bridges, just not the peanut line. And we've also incurred additional costs for emergency repairs or things we discovered this year that have come out of reserves as well. Mr. Murphy noted the amount that's come out. Almost half that amount was, you'll remember that we spent, we've almost spent. We just had 2 fire vehicles and the roads garage being converted, but we've had other, but that's what reserves are for. So.
Okay,
Back to you.
Yep, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments from the members of council? Seeing none, are we going with the item A or B? Are we doing the full amount with the extra 25 to complete the full project, or are we approving the additional transfer of 105 and allocate 25,000 from the peanut line maintenance? Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I would vote for the full amount, keep the maintenance money there. I mean, especially since we're going to do a little drive here in the next while. Like, there are maintenance issues along there that come up from time to time, and I wouldn't like to see it at zero.
Okay, Thank you. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd agree to that as well.
Councillor Luck?
I would also be in favor of B. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
So, moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski, be it resolved that staff report 164-2022 be received, and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approves an additional transfer of $130,000 from general reserves for tender 25-2022 for a total transfer of $230,000 for tender 25-2022. All those in favor of a motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we're moving on to 7B, Parks and Recreation Master Plan, Ms. Servage.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the Parks and Rec Master Plan draft document was released to council early July for review and then was presented at the August 2nd meeting. So I'm bringing the document forward again because I believe at the last meeting, council wanted to do some review or take some time to review the document. So after discussing with the CAO Mills and our clerk, it was decided to bring it forward to council to adopt it. This document is especially important to have for future grant opportunities that come up. Agencies do like to see that there's a plan that's already in place in order to apply for certain funding. Not only does the document provide a strategic approach to larger projects, but it also shines light on areas that we do need to work on or more research needs to be done. For example, our staffing levels or our high level of service that our department does provide. Obviously, it's also important for our department to have some sort of plan in place in order to map out projects strategically, especially at budget time. So as mentioned in the report and also back in August when we presented it, this is a working document, so it can be adjusted as we go. Other priorities may arise and some goals may change, and that's okay. So this does not bypass the budget process by any means, but all projects will be brought to budget each year.
All right, thank you very much for your report, Ms. Servage. I think this is an exciting document for us, and I do look forward to, in the near future, having a committee of the whole meeting to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this and have a more wholesome discussion. So are there any other questions or comments of members of council? Deputy Mayor Jaworski, then Councillor Lang.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden. And I think it's more of a question for the clerk, maybe. So when we had this back in August, we received it, but now we're adopting it. So I guess just, I wanted to understand, because, you know, we refer to it as a living, breathing document. I'm trying to understand what's the difference between receiving and adopting this time.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess essentially there isn't a huge difference. I think just at the time in August, council wasn't ready to fully adopt it, so we kind of massaged the resolution a little bit, whereby you received it, and I guess that kind of left things open to if you decided you just did not want to accept this document and have this as our roadmap for the next 10 years, and it came back before you this evening, you could say, no, we're not adopting it. You received it in August, but it was just for information purposes, I guess, at that point. By passing the resolution tonight to adopt the plan, I would say that you're now, it's now something that we've accepted, and we are, our intent is to move forward with it as our roadmap going forward.
Great. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'll just go out and say thank you for the extra time. I appreciated the added time to review it. It is a very large document, so I've taken some time over the last month to work through parts of it at a time. I have a few little concerns with it, but they're more or less spelling mistakes. But so we'll leave it at that. But no, I do want to just reiterate something that Ms. Servage said, that you know, people often look at us at the municipality and say, you know, we try to study everything to death. This document will be extremely helpful for us moving forward as far as funding opportunities, and it'll show, especially within the arena, we have a plan for the next 10 years and working through that. And it's definitely looked favorably upon by upper levels of government when it comes to going through those funding processes, and show that this isn't it's not an overnight decision we made to apply for a large sum of money. This has been done, and it is going to be in the works over the next 10 years. And I really do want to reiterate that. So I appreciate the extra time to review this, as well as you're bringing it back tonight for adoption. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I like the term roadmap. I think that's what this is. But I want to have a plan in place, and that's why I think we need to adopt this. I think it's great that we've gone to this work, and it was very, very thorough. Thank you very much for everything you did to get this to the point we're at. And if we decide to massage it, or we decide to, take different routes to get to the end destination, we have that ability as we move forward. But at least now we have a destination where we're headed for. So thank you.
Great. Seeing no other comments, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McTennell. Be it resolved that staff report 165-2022 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan prepared by Miek, Kelly and Associates. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Servage. And moving on to page 243, Ms. McDonald, staff report 166-2022. Just type in 243.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, staff report 166-2022 is to request that council receive the 2021 OSIM inspection reports prepared by McIntosh, Perry and Associates for our road bridges. High-level summaries is this OSIM report should have come sooner, but I forgot to put it on your agenda, also known as I didn't know I needed to, so apologize for that. It looks at 50 structures. These structures are reviewed every second year, and there are a few that get picked up every year. So I think there are 4 road structures that are on an annual rotation. Point number 5 provides a high-level summary of the OSIM report. So we have one structure that needs an options renewal study in the near future. E, I pointed out that for major rehabilitation in the next 1 to 5 years, there were 10 structures identified, but we did knock off 6 of those this year. So don't be too alarmed by that big number. I believe the report was attached to your council package, so if you had any questions, I can give a shot at answering them, but that's kind of it.
Great, thank you very much. There was a lot of detailed information in there. Deputy Mayor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for bringing this forward. So my question has to do with the items that were marked as urgent in the McIntosh Perry report, and what's the plan for those? And I've had residents ask me about the butternut one specifically also. So I know it's kind of a minor one compared to the other ones that are in the urgent category, Kinloch Road and Squire Road, but if you could talk about those ones, please, in the plan.
Yep, and through you, Mr. Mayor, for everyone else, this is on, I don't know what pages it is in the agenda package, but it's page 297, 49 in the McIntosh Perry report. So these are maintenance items, and this is where, if you'll remember, a few weeks ago, we deferred the guide rail budget. This would identify the first bunch that we'd be doing in 2023. So that would be structures 30, anyways, I'm gonna go with the last numbers, 3, 16, and 17. The second line road bridge is on the docket for next year, pending budget approvals, of course. And with respect to Butternut Lane, this is a small little, right now it's not carrying vehicles. It appears to be a recreational trail up in the east quadrant of the township. I was there a few weeks ago. It does need some help, and we'll be doing an options renewal assessment on it next year to figure out what we should do with the structure moving forward, whether it's rehabilitate or something else entirely, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Lang?
thanks for bringing the report. More of a comment and something that I think we should go through and look at. One thing that caught my attention going through it, open footing culverts seem to last a long time. A lot of them were done in the 50s and some of them are still in good conditions. I'm not exactly sure what they are. I'm assuming it's the cement with the box poured over it, but no, maybe no box on the bottom. But anyway, if we've got a bunch of them that were done in the 50s and they're still in good condition, let's think about some of those.
Very good point. Seeing no other questions or comments, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that staff report 166-2022 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry receive the 2021 Ontario Structural Inspection Manual Report prepared by Macintosh Perry Consulting Engineers Limited. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for that report. And 7D, update to asset management plan, 10-year capital bridge plan. I guess this is neck and neck.
You got it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. This follows from receiving the 2021 OSIM inspection reports, and it is updating the approved 10-year capital bridge plan to reflect the work that we've done this year in 2022 and take them off out of the 2023 column. So as you'll recall, I believe it was early July that we approved our asset management plan, which included the attached version, which is noted as existing version at the top of the 10-year capital bridge plan. And really this is, like I said, just moving everything out of the 2023 column that we did in 2022 and aligning it with the 2021 OSIM report. So there was no strange stuff done to the proposed version. It's just aligning it, getting us ready for budget season, really. Thank you.
All right, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess I only have one question. There was one asset, it's actually very near the top. It's the Cemetery Road Bridge. We have it to be done, engineering to start in 2026 and completion 2028. Just wondering if that's something we should be reviewing for this coming spring, as Cemetery Road, I believe, is on our plan for next year, as we've downgraded the service there to gravel to prepare for paving. I just see it there. It's not a major expenditure, I guess, if you look in regards to bridges. It's not a $750,000 bridge, but it's maybe something we could address now before we do the road.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe you may be looking at the existing version where we have the engineering in 2026. It's been advanced to 2024.
Perfect.
In the revised version.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I thought it was advanced, but I just wanted to clarify.
All right, perfect. Any other questions or comments? Is that a yes, maybe? Deputy Mayor Jaworski?
Sorry, thank you, through you, Mayor. I just wanted, maybe this is asking you to look into a crystal ball, so I apologize if that's the case. But with, we did increase the reserve transfers for bridges a little while ago. And you do make the comment that estimated funding is appropriate for the next 2 fiscal years. But so what are you, in your crystal ball, what are you thinking for in the future? Do you think that it's going to be major change, or is it like an inflation supply chain issue, or something else? Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to be honest, the math was off in the original documents. So where they believe they were proposing something around the $500,000 to $700,000 range, they were proposing over $1 million. So whenever we hit 2024, we're no longer averaging out to that $510,000 each year. We're now averaging out to $1 million a year. So I'm hoping when we receive the 2023 OSIM report that we can do a bit of massaging to 2024 onwards. So I believe that with the existing level of funding that we have, which is that $510,000, and hopefully a bit of OSIF funding can be put on top of that towards bridges, that will make it through 2023, 2024 per this plan, and we will have to do some fun stuff when we get the next OSIM. I don't really have a crystal ball, but the existing level will not get us past into 2025. Like, we just won't have the reserves available unless we up them.
All righty. Yep, Councillor Luck.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, just because every time we seem to like go out for tender, the costs are a lot higher than we originally suspected. I guess I'm just curious about how we came up with, like, say, the construction costs and what sort of like percentage we're allocating towards inflation and just unforeseen costs due to the market and supply chain issues.
Excellent question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, there is no inflation on these numbers. These numbers are in 2021 dollars, and they're pulled directly from our OSIM report, which McIntosh Perry, I believe, used their engineering knowledge and kind of what bids had been coming in at that time to estimate the work. So certainly, when we update this plan again in 2 years, I'm expecting those numbers to rise considerably.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Lang for the final comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Then I would recommend that when we talk about our budget in the next month or two, that we put some inflation on those numbers. I think it's ridiculous not to. We know that, what was the term? Maybe it was you that used it. It was infrastructure inflation. It seems to be different than other inflation. So I think we can look back and we can see what it's done in the last year. So I think we need to be realistic. Like, we can't keep fooling ourselves and thinking 500,000 is going to be fine when we know it's going to double in 5 or 10 years, you know?
Yeah, good points.
If I may, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, now that we've done, I believe, 6 structures and 1 major culvert this year, so we'll have our own good numbers to kind of work with moving forward, since that's a considerable amount of work that we've put out compared to previous years.
Good. Yep, good point. Okay, moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 164-2022 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accept and amend the asset management plan's 10-year capital budget plan as presented. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald. And we're moving on to bylaws, 8A, bylaw to transfer lands. Lucien Lefebvre subdivision. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, this is very much a housekeeping item. The Lucien Lefebvre subdivision was signed in, I believe, 1976. It is in kind of the northeast corner of Green Valley. It is 8 blocks, 8 homes. Anyhow, part of the subdivision agreement noted that the temporary turning circles that were shown on the plan would be conveyed revert back to the owner, of the abutting lots whenever the time was right. At some point between 1976 and present day, the subdivision to the north was expanded. There is an existing turning circle and homes off of it, so we no longer need to hold on to blocks F and G. And so we are just making good on the original subdivision agreement through this bylaw. The 2 homeowners have lawyers who have requested that we do this, and Infrastructure Services has looked at it, and we see no need to hold these blocks with the turning circle higher north. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This plan of subdivision was prepared before the majority of the people in this room were born. Any questions or comments? I looked around the room before I said that. Okay, seeing none, moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 168-2022 be received, and that bylaw 70-2022 being a bylaw to transfer blocks F and G of the plan of subdivision of part of lot 38, concession 8, Township of Lancaster, County of Glengarry. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald. And one more for you, 8B, bylaw for assumption of works, Place Saint Laurent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, again, this is a housekeeping item. Last council meeting, council accepted the works of Place Saint Laurent Phase 5, and GM Haley brought it to my attention that through the Municipal Act, Section 31, subsection 4, we do need to open it as a public road, so this is a bylaw to open that section of Yacht Boulevard for public usage. Thank you.
Perfect. Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Warden. And just so I did give Ms. McDonald a preview of this question, so I'm not hitting her blind. But so as timing would have it, I've spoken to lots of folks in Place Saint Laurent recently, and there's a lot of questions, or it seems perceptions of inconsistencies that around drainage and ditches being filled in, or some being open. And I was just wondering, since it is related to these things, and it's occurring to me that perhaps there's additional information that I should be understanding before accepting these things as they come through. If you could just speak to that a bit, please.
Sure, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I talked a little bit with Jim Haley earlier today to make sure that my answer is appropriate, and she's promised to jump in if I go off the rails in any way, shape, or form. So a very long time ago, when these subdivisions were first being brought forward, the standard, well, there was no standard to have like a curb and gutter cross-section, which would give us storm sewers underneath the road and drain water that way towards Kenny Road 2 and ultimately the St. Lawrence River. So they do have that more rural cross-section. So we have ditches, and we started, I'm not sure when phase 1 started, but as you progress further north, there's no opportunity really to break into the road and start a storm network underneath. That's something that we could look into. So that's why these newer subdivisions, especially further north, higher north from County Road 2, are still ditched. In terms of inconsistencies, so when the properties are built and the developers are doing their thing, they install it with a ditch beside the road. There's a mechanism through bylaw, I believe it's bylaw 11-2000, which is our roadside level of service policy possibly. I've forgotten what it's called, but through that there's a mechanism by which residents can apply for a permit to fill in their ditches, and right now we have that bundled with our entrance permit. So if someone would like to fill in their front ditch, then they are required to hire an engineering firm to prepare drawings, and that will show the appropriate drainage and pipe sizing, I suppose. And there are a very limited number of rules that they need to follow. That's submitted with the permit fee. We review it on our end and issue the permit, and then they are able to fill in their front ditch. However, if something went wrong with that ditch, since it would be as approved through the subdivision, we would reinstate it back to the natural ditch configuration.
Great, thank you. So as I understand it, there's a mechanism for folks to be changing it, and it's a permitting process. All right, thank you very much.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 169 be received, 2022, be received, and that bylaw 71-2022, being a bylaw to assume a portion of Yacht Boulevard as shown on registered plan 14M-15, pin number 67128-0411 as public highway be adopted. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we're moving on to the consent agenda. And nothing got pulled. Righty. So moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that council rise and, no, that's, my apologies. I skipped a couple here. Moved by Rebecca Lux, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that council of the Township of South Glengarry accept the consent agenda items. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that council convene to close session at 8:05 p.m. to discuss the following item under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, specifically identifiable individual. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We'll see you back on to close off the rest of the meeting. And welcome back to the final portion of this council meeting. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the October 17th council meeting of the Township, oh, my apologies. Be resolved that council rise and reconvene at 8:55 PM into open session without reporting. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that bylaw 73-2022, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time. Passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 17th day of October 2022. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 8:55 PM. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Have yourselves a great evening. Thank you.